get started. This meeting tonight, we feel like we need to get kind of everybody on the same page, see where we're at, where we're going, how we're getting there. Seems like we've had several 911 discussions here in the last month, starting with part of it with Sheriff's Department, with the City of Edina, and trying to figure out, as the commission, at some point this got put under the commission, is the one that holds the contract. When we read the letter from the City of Edina that they were gonna pull out, some of the points that the City of Edina made, I felt like they had legitimate points, you know, that some of the negotiation of the contract and different things, we probably should have handled that different. It's kind of what we inherited when we got here, and I think it's been working. I'd like to see it keep working. From what we've been able to talk about over the last month, it doesn't seem to be that many options. It doesn't seem like it's as easy as just quitting and switching to do something different just because we want to. The City of Edina, your letter, of course, is a big part of what we're doing here tonight that you're wanting to pull out. I guess there's going to be some problems for you guys to do that, for you guys to pull completely out. It's going to cause some big problems, and then how do we fill that gap? How do we get you guys dispatched? Are you going to go out on your own and do something different? How do we get that pulled off? So I guess if you've got Bill's everybody knows Bill's the emergency management director here in the county. Bill is much more up on this stuff than I am. He knows how the dispatching, he knows how this works. He's worked with about every organization that's involved here. So I've leaned on him quite a bit to try to figure this out as to how we make it work. And if you've got something you want to add, Bill, or?
I mean, I kind of agree with what he said. You know, in 2013, I wasn't anything near, was the city council of Edina, so we're all kind of in the dark on this. I wasn't aware that you guys weren't involved in any of that before, so I totally understand that. I guess for me, a lot of it is just where do we go from here? That sort of thing. That leaves a roughly $30,000 and some change hole that either the ambulance board district and the commission or the county is gonna have to fill. So that, where do we go from there? My main question, and how are you gonna have, if you're gonna have police, how are you gonna dispatch if you're not gonna be on our service? That would be my question, because I don't feel it's fair that the county and the ambulance would pay for dispatching for a police station for Edina. The fire, in my opinion, that's nothing, we're not, you know what I mean, to me. But the police would be different, you know, if you were, because nobody else has a police department except Edina. So that's why I would assume you would have to pay your share. But that's, I guess, I mean, if you're not gonna have a police department, then I guess it's not a discussion to have, because then we have to figure out how to make do. But that would be my question, because your letter said that you were gonna use the money that you were paying to try to hire a chief of police, which I totally get that. But if you hire a new chief of police, who's gonna dispatch for your chief of police and for your police station, I guess would be my question.
Well,
Rick, Rick, you?
No, he answered what I was gonna fire, but, you know, it's just not Edina, it's like Newark, it's all the other cities. I mean, they never have pitched in on anything. Everybody's relied on the city of Edina. And the county, and I mean, everybody pays county taxes. City Edina pays the county taxes. It all goes to the county. And I don't see why the city really has to be responsible. If Novelty ain't responsible, Knox City ain't responsible, none of them are responsible, why the city has to be responsible.
Well, one of the things that we've talked about, and it's something that we don't wanna talk about, but we have talked about it, when things continue to go up. I mean, that's just part of life, they just continue to go up. Gets to the point, do we ask the rural fire departments to pay part of this? How do we finance it, how do we get this covered? It's gotta come from somewhere, there's no free rides.
We don't have no money though.
Well,
It's just
and
nobody
I
has
will,
extra
I
money
will
to
go
do
on
that.
and say that making 911, that looks like a lot of money when we write that check. We've down there and talked to them, we've talked to other county commissions, we know what people are paying for 911 dispatching. Guys, we need this, cause we're gonna spend a lot, the other options that are on the table are a lot more expensive. I mean, it's not even in the ballpark, so if we go to plan B and C that we're aware of, we're talking about coming up with a lot more money. That's not that none of us are gonna be able to cover. So,
Before we went to the 911 dispatch, the ambulance district, because we had dispatchers 24/7, and we would pick up sheriff's stuff, we were paying over $75,000, and it's gone up. So, I mean, you wouldn't even get people around the clock for that now.
Well, for instance, Shelby County, we talked to Shelby County. Shelby County does their own dispatching. They're at about $400,000 a year for dispatching.
They went over budget last.
That was over budget. They get $300 and some thousand in tax money that's earmarked directly for dispatching, and they still went over. So that's when we started thinking, well, we're getting away with it, maybe cheaper than what, we shouldn't be complaining about our price, I guess, is the way we looked at it, that we're probably getting it pretty affordable. I would counter to Rick's statement is that no other town in the county has their own police department. Where the county pays for all the fire departments, all of them.
So
The ambulance pays for their dispatching. The police department, we pay for all the sheriff's dispatching. So the only dispatching that we're talking about is Edina, that is separate, that has their own police
So you're
department.
saying Edina, we gotta raise our taxes for everybody in Edina to support the county?
No, to support Edina's police department. If you look at the numbers, until this year when you haven't had law enforcement, you have a third of the calls
Mhm.
in Edina for police.
Yep.
That's where the third, I'm assuming, comes from, but you
Everybody
pay a
pays
third.
equal taxes though. I mean, everybody in county pays their taxes.
We
It's equal.
receive $255.08 a year for a telecommunication franchise tax for the county. That's only money we receive that is earmarked for dispatching or for any, and that's not really even that. But so I don't get what you're saying. We don't, as a county, don't receive zero money. The ambulance district receives money on a tax
It's a dedicated.
that is dedicated to the dispatching communications.
Yeah, it doesn't cover our part of it.
But we don't, I mean, all of ours goes into a general that runs everything in the county. But like I said, for me, it's only the police department is the hangup. Cause we already pay for the rural fire department's calls aren't even a third of anything, they're minuscule compared to the ambulance, the sheriff, and Edina PD. That's where your bulk of calls are on a normal year. That's where we feel, but like I said, if you guys aren't gonna have one, then we'll have to figure it out. But my opinion is that if you have a police department, you have to pay for your dispatching. Whether that means you're gonna make your own contract with a 911 dispatch center and pay your own, or, however that works. But I don't feel like it's the county's responsibility to pay for the city of Edina's police department.
For those who don't understand exactly how the E911 works, how the dispatching does, so how are your calls dispatched? I mean, they come from Macon?
Yes.
When you call 911, it comes from Macon. And where then does it go to after, when Macon gets it? What do they do with it, the call that came in?
It goes to the frequent radio frequencies. These guys can probably tell you more technical terms, but the radio frequencies that they have power on the water tower. They have another base at the ambulance district as well. but it repeats and then goes out from there on the radios, handheld radio.
So does it cost you more, for a city police officer to have a handheld radio with him? Does that increase your cost for the dispatch that you're receiving from making?
It's based upon a call volume is how they charge us. And so their calls
The
are,
number of radios, it's actually the calls that you get.
yeah, it's all based on call volume, 911 calls, and that's how they base it. That's why I say that it's their responsibility to pay their share.
So if they have a police officer and the 911 call comes in, you're going to get it, well, the sheriff's, you're not the sheriff's
No,
office. The sheriff's office is going to get that same call, they'll hear it, cause it'll come off the same frequency, the same radios. And so
yes and
it's
no,
all the
because
ambulance?
everybody's got tone that comes out first, and that's what tells you. So like, if I had my radio set only Hurdland fire calls, cause I'm on Hurdland, then that's all I'll hear. I won't hear nobody else.
Okay.
But if they dispatch from down there and it's a call in Edina, they don't call for the sheriff. In times past, when they have full staff, they automatically page the Edina PD. And then Edina PD would then, if they needed help from the sheriff, you can step in and they would ask, right?
Yeah, as assistance, yes. So essentially, the so the $90,000, does not include police service. The $90,000, the $30,000 the city, the $30,000 and then the $30,000 the ambulance. Is that correct? 90 grand. Okay, so $99,000, $100,000 that's split between. That is the Knox County Commission, the County of Knox, entering a contract with a 911 center to cover 911 services in the county. Extra things, a police department that's making traffic stops, conducting investigations, requesting criminal histories, that costs us per call. They charge us per call for that. So if I go out here and make a traffic stop for speeding, whatever, I think it costs us $9.
I think that's right.
I think it's like $9. And the majority of law enforcement calls they need addressed, but they're not life or death at the time, like an ambulance call or a structure fire, things like that. So if we're taking a delayed burglary report or things of that nature, the 911 contract before did not cover those types of calls. So the county commission, and these gentlemen could help me, back in the summertime, entered another contract with 911 for non-emergency police services that cost us, what is it, an extra $5,000?
Four.
Okay.
Four.
So that's the thing. All of those things are all costing the county extra money, essentially. So, because that 911 service does not include things like mules, criminal history requests, things like that are not included with that $99,000. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
One more thing that I would point out, to go back to Brenda's question, is if we cut our call volume by 1/3 for the 911 dispatching, if we did, our rate's not gonna go down, because their overhead is basically the $90,000 for the 911 for Knox County is to cover help cover their overhead. So if we doubled our call volume, I would hope that
No, it would go up.
It would go up.
They have a formula that they use to figure on how much they charge.
It's based on our call volume.
Yes, it's all based, that's how it fluctuates every year. That's why it's when you say it's went up every year, it has, and that's because our 911 calls have went up every year since 2013. It went, as soon as we got to 911, it's just I think it's a natural phenomenon everywhere, that your calls are gonna go up, because it's easier to call 911 than it was before. And then on top of that, it's just went up every year. Every year, everybody is up this year even more compared to last year, except Edina PD. But that's kind of a given, cause we know that there's been issues there, you know?
Well, I
But-
think after today, we got 12 more calls and we're gonna break 500 for the ambulance service.
As of right now, from what Mike Kendall from 911 sent me, for 2005, right now, the EMS has 1,065 calls.
That was as a.
And that was as of the other day, we need from.
Does that include fire departments?
No, fire departments had 330 calls. The rescue squad had 26 calls. The sheriff had 1,776 calls. The city of Edina had 182. If you look at 2024, the total year, EMS was at 988. Fire 289, rescue at 18, the sheriff at 971 calls. City of Edina, 386. So like I said, every year it just continues to go up, which then makes our fee go up a little bit.
The 911 is used just for emergency calls.
That's what you're supposed to, but no. We
Not
found out that
everyone uses
it's,
it
that
that
it's
way.
not. In the last few months, there's a lot of calls that go there that aren't necessarily emergencies. There's also a lot of calls that, like the non-calls, Carl has a dispatcher during the day. After hours, he doesn't have anybody, which she's not really, would you call her dispatcher? Cause they're still dispatching calls. She does the office work and answers lawyer questions or what, if he served papers, if he's done this. After hours, those go directly down there too. That's where we had to pay more money to them so that they would answer all those calls after hours and take care of them and then leave messages or whatever they gotta do to get to Carl, but.
And
What-
those after-hour calls is because the sheriff's office doesn't have a full-time dispatcher.
Or a full-time office clerk, personnel, somebody to answer the phone, cause those aren't 911 calls.
Someone there all the time.
Yeah, just have somebody there to answer the phone, which like the ambulance, I believe, has it go to their boss's phone. Is that right? It calls so that way you don't, cause you don't have somebody there
Yeah. I
all the
agree.
time to pay to, right. And that's kinda how Carl's does somewhat after hours, but then if they don't hit the right button, it goes back to me. So we entered into a separate contract that has nothing to do with anybody else, only us, for more or less the sheriff's department to take care of all after hour calls.
Exactly how much does Knox County pay to E911, for example, for this year? Or, you know, how much money's been spent on?
I think it's right around 200,000.
The code. I can come up with it, but I'm not gonna start digging for it.
I figured you might have that just
Well, I
handy.
had it.
I don't, okay.
That was one I didn't write down, but we should have it right here. The contract, like in the budget for last year was $96,061.80. I think the last bill we had that I've seen, it was roughly $1,700 or $1,800 of the mule calls.
Give me
which are
that number
separate.
one more time. Sorry, give me that number again.
$96,061.80. That was what was budgeted last year, and that was,
And that doesn't include what Edina or the ambulance district paid?
no, we budget one whole number for the whole thing, and then they pay the third to the county, and then it goes directly, that's what it goes for, it goes into the county.
And then was there an extra beside this for the, like the mules and then, what was that? Do you know
I
that?
don't have the exact one without the invoice, Stephanie would have to find it for us, she looks like she.
It's like she just turned around. and went, okay.
Approximately 10 grand extra with everything.
You think? I
Well,
didn't think it
and that's
was
gonna
that.
be with the $5,000.
Oh, yeah, including that.
It's
yeah.
gonna be around 10 grand. Which will go up or down.
So if Edina police officer is not taking emergency calls and is not going to be acting as an emergency officer, only an ordinance violation officer, because the city is within the county, and the county sheriff's office would still be responsible for emergency calls.
Yep.
Then would ordinance violations, is there a way to reroute those so that they're not sent through the 911?
That would have to be for the city of Edina to answer if that's what their plan is to do, and then you'd have, I mean, yeah. Cause it wouldn't be, they wouldn't call 911 to report grass, I wouldn't think, being too tall, or just for instance.
Correct, and.
So then that's where I'm saying is if they're not gonna have a law enforcement, then it's kind of a moot discussion, because then I totally understand why you wouldn't pay for something if you don't have it.
As a fourth-class county, under the statute, our police officer is not required to be an emergency, to answer emergency calls. That's still up to the sheriff's office because they cover the whole county and they take care of emergencies. The city police officer is actually supposed to take care of ordinance violations, running dogs, tall grass, those type of things. And if they limit their officer to that and start charging, fining people for those ordinance violations to be able to get the city cleaned up and things, then the sheriff's office will go ahead and take care of emergency calls, right?
Yeah, that's what his job is, Edina's in our county,
Of course.
I mean, so.
I mean, if that's what if Edina wants to take away a vital service to the citizens of Edina, that's on them. So we have been the last 8 months and will continue to handle emergency calls inside the city of Edina. Of course we will.
One of the things that I would point out to that, Brenda, is those calls are gonna come in somewhere.
Right.
So it's still gonna cost Knox County, Missouri, whether it's Knox County Ambulance District, Knox County Fire Departments, Knox County Sheriff, we're still gonna have to come up with that money.
It's gonna be
And I anticipate it to continue to go up. So I see where you're going, but as the people that's setting out the contract, how do we cover that? Because if the city of Edina pulls out, there's no reason that you cannot do that. But as the commission and the ambulance board and the sheriff's department we've gotta figure out how we're gonna cover that. Because pulling out is the easy part. How do we keep 911 in Knox County? And I can't say it's fair for the city of Edina to have to pay it all. But I would think it would be reasonable to pay some of it.
Okay, and you said that, somewhere along here, there was $4,000 that the city of Edina used in services or something. What was that $4,000?
No, that's about what we paid to not Macon for the after-hours services for the sheriff's department.
Administrative,
I
non-emergency.
would suggest if you want numbers, instead of throwing out numbers,
Right.
let's get the numbers. If you ask us what numbers that you need, and we will get the actual numbers instead of guessing, because I don't wanna be off by 20, 30, 40, 50, even 100%, I would rather those numbers be accurate instead of sitting here and trying to pull numbers out of this different stuff. So that we know what it's actually costing, instead of guessing.
Okay. But if the city, and if they can find an officer, who is not going to go ahead and do emergency calls, I mean, I assume if the sheriff's office absolutely calls and says, assist, they're not gonna turn him down, but it's not gonna be in one of their requirements. Would the money that you receive, that's earmarked through the E911, through the telecommunications and those, would it be enough to cover the cost? The taxes that, the people in the city are paying the same tax, is I think what somebody wanted to make a point, is that we pay, or the city people pay with their cell phones, because they have cell phones and the tax on their cell phones. And
We're
the
not
tax through the
collecting
telecommunications, that comes into, and it goes into the county budget.
The telecommunication franchise tax that we received last year was $255.08. That's what the county.
There is no cell phone tax.
There is no cell phone.
It's only on
tax in
landlines.
Knox County.
There can be, but it has to be voted on by the voters.
Correct.
We cannot implement that, and it's not in place. One of the things when I got here, I started because I remember when we had this discussion in 2013, when I was outside looking in. But they talked about that tax, and we were supposed to get money based on the cell phones and all that. So when I got here, I started looking for that money. I was asking the right questions the wrong way, and I couldn't find it. And so it's available, and was that Peggy, I believe, sent me that email the other day, and I dug into that. That's available, but it has to be passed by the voters. There was one for landlines that we're not getting, I don't believe we're getting, and they said it was basically not worth going after anyway, because there's not that many landlines left. So it was $1 per every device capable of dialing 911 except prepaid phones. But we do not have that in place. So there's some other taxes on there that you can go after, but we do not have those in place either. So right now, we're not collecting the money and putting it somewhere else. The county commission is collecting that number. We got that from the treasurer after I got the email, and we was able to find that money, but that's all. So I guess, we get to the end of this, and I understand the city of Edina's position, I do. But we need 911 in the county. And the best option on the table right now, from where I'm looking at it, and I'm looking, and if anybody else has got better options, we would certainly look at them. But making 911 is our best option by a mile right now. So we've gotta figure out as a community and as a county, if we want 911, how do we pay for it? And I go back, if the city of Edina doesn't pay it, where's it come from? And that's what, do we go back to the fire departments? Do we go back to the sheriff's department, the ambulance district? Where do we come up with the additional money to cover that? And when you're figuring that in, keep in mind that that's this year's rate, we're gonna have to have more money next year.
And also think that all of our rural fire departments are volunteer only. Most of them are dues only, so they don't have a lot of money. They barely have enough money to operate and keep their equipment that's most likely 10 to 15 years old. And they fight for every grant to get any kind of equipment. So for anybody to say that we should then strap them even with $1,000 or $2,000 piece, it doesn't sit well with me. But ultimately, that's what I said. If it's up to if the city's out, then we have to figure it out. That's where I am, you know what I mean? And it's just and then it becomes between us and the ambulance board of how do we fill this gap.
So your next best thing, put it on a county ballot and go for a sales tax. 3/8 or a half cent.
But Peggy's got something she's wanting to bring in.
I started looking, trying to get our budget to come together. I started looking for funding sources. And, what I discovered is we couldn't get funding for salaries for police. We can get equipment and other stuff, but we can't get salaries. But you can at the county level because the ordinances, and I'm not an attorney, so I wanna be real careful here. But the ordinances for a fourth-class city require us to enforce the ordinances of the city of Edina. No emergency services are listed under state statutes. They realize we don't have the funding. The county funding is significantly more. It's specifically assigned to the county by statute. From what I read in here, again, I'm not an attorney. But there are no funding sources for 911 for this fourth-class cities. Now, larger cities, yes, but for us, there's not. And so I got to thinking about this and I thought, okay, the duties assigned to the county, the funding's available for the county. And yeah, there's some steps that are gonna have to be gone through in order to get that in place. But we don't have any sources. And so we're draining our city funds. And when you think about it, everyone in the city is paying county taxes. We're entitled to the same services, with the sheriff's department, with 911, as everybody else. It's been a burden on the city. And we can't continue to do the services that we're required to do and do county costs also, and that's kind of where we're coming from.
That's Understandable.
So is it Edina's position that Peggy and Linda, that you're not, because when we had discussed this after the last city council meeting, I specifically asked, are you pulling out of E911? And you said, no, you wanted to renegotiate. So I mean, is it, are you on the wall that you're absolutely not paying for 911 no matter what? Or are you willing to negotiate paying something to help? You know what I mean? Is there something in the budget to be able to pay? Yes, I have. So
We
there's,
just don't have the funding. We cut back on that to get a police officer where we can do our ordinances to take care of something, and we just don't have the funding. We've been robbing Pete to pay Paul for quite a few years, and we just don't have the funding.
Well, I'm not saying you wouldn't have 911 services in Edina. Let me make sure you got, because 911 services in Edina would be the same. You just wouldn't, I'm saying if you have a police department that is there 24 hours a day that's wanting to work burglaries and all that, then that's where I'm saying that's the difference. If you're doing ordinance violations, that's most likely gonna be done during the day or evening, and you're gonna have your people that are in the city hall to answer your phone calls of complaints to that and handle that all. That's more of an in-house handled thing. I'm not saying that, cause you're still gonna have 911 services in Edina to call for a sheriff, a fire, an ambulance. That's not, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're having an active law enforcement that's using mules, that's using the 911 services for emergency calls, then you should pay. If you're not, then you're not. And then we need to know, that's kind of where we need to know going into budget, so we can then, like I said, work with the ambulance district or whatever, because, the bills are gonna come due, and we're gonna have to pay them one way or the other, I don't want anybody to think that the county, in my opinion, the county's not so destitute that they can't pay, or but I feel like it's a fair share with the ambulance too, and it is gonna be a burden, I would assume, for them, but that's your guys' decision on that, and I totally get what you're saying, I personally disagree with some of that, but that's everybody, I'm not in your guys' spot, you don't always agree with
But
the
the only way we
decision
can
you
do
make.
it is we'd have to raise the city taxes. And I don't think that's fair because it's for the county. I don't think the city of Edina should raise their taxes to do 911 for the county.
But you're not doing it for the county.
I'm not doing it for the
You're just doing it for the police department in the city of Edina.
Why?
So here,
Wait a minute,
let's get
guys.
down to it. You wanna know why Novelty, Herdland, Knox City doesn't pay their fair share? We don't have a police department. We do not have a law enforcement officer that answers calls. That's it. Herdland's a fourth-class city too. The reason we don't have a city marshal is because they have to enforce the city ordinances and by law, the state laws, and have to have power to arrest. And that means that it has to be a police department, right? That means 911 emergencies. So we would have to, if we get a city marshal, dispatched by 911, city would have to pay that bill. No questions asked. The fire departments, you want them to pick up the tab, here's the deal. We gotta raise dues, right? By at least $50 per property because of our budgets. You want us to come up with another $6,000, $7,000? We could probably do that, but then we're gonna have a lot of landowners mad, the county people mad. It sounds to me like the city of Edina at one time had a lot of calls. They don't have that many calls now. Well, maybe renegotiate based on the call volume.
Well, part of that, going back to that, law enforcement in the county, if you go back, how many law enforcement officers was there in the county 12 years ago? From the sheriff's department, city of Edina, how many people was in the county working in law enforcement? And right now, you know that you're struggling to hire help. Carl's struggling to hire help. We've got
You're in the same boat.
everybody's struggling to hire help, and so you're having to pay more and more and more wages to get that in.
And the city can't afford to pay the wages to get the help if they're gonna have to do emergency calls, because they're not going to be there are gonna be people who say, I'm gonna put my stuff on the line for no more than you're willing to pay us. And if they don't have the money, how do they pay it?
So my question is, you were paying for a chief of police and a full-time, officer, what, 2 years ago? Where did all that money go?
Always robbing Pete to Paul,
It was coming out of the general fund.
and you can only get so much to do it.
So now you only have enough for a part-time officer?
It drains you.
Well, we had a big increase in health insurance, the road stuff that you have to put on the roads goes up, gas.
Everybody did.
It's for everybody.
And we don't have the people. I mean, we got like 1,000 people now. You know, if we had 4,000 people, it would work perfect.
There's only 4,000 in the county.
That's
Less.
what I'm saying. Every 6 times, we moved back and they just done all this. We had the population, you got it, you made it. We don't have the population anymore.
I totally understand what you're saying. I'm not, like I said, personal feelings are different than, you know, but I'm not, that's, you know, that's up to you guys, that's your decision to make. What you guys, and you know your numbers and I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not.
And I think probably this whole room, I don't wanna speak for the room, I'll speak for me. We need more law enforcement in the county, across the board. We just need, we need more law enforcement in the county. So it goes back to, we're in the same boat. If we have to come up with money to pay 911, does it come out of Carl's budget? Where does it come from? And everybody's in the same boat trying to make it reach. But what I think we all need to commit to is how bad we need 911. And how few of options that we actually have, and how do we cover that? And if we go to a tax, there's a lot of stuff needs to be talked about with the ambulance district and the sheriff's department and the commission, and whoever's gonna, if it's gonna be a countywide tax, and then how that board's gonna be set up. There's a lot of negotiating, a lot of bridges that need to be crossed before we could start to put a tax in place.
You gotta get the county behind you first.
Yeah, you'd have to have the votes
You know, and-
to do it.
And there's a lot of, you know, since I've been sheriff, there's a lot of misconception about the number of officers in the county. So I started here as a deputy in 13. The sheriff's office has always been a sheriff and 2 deputies.
Full-time day.
Full-time, always. Now, I think there was a lot of people that got confused, you know, because, you know, there used to be a lot of part-time deputies that I think made the county, the citizens think, well, we used to just see deputies all the time. Well, yeah, there was 7 of them running around, you know. Well, you cannot rely on part-time help. You have, but the county has always been a sheriff and 2 deputies, which was just enough to sustain the county. When I started in 13, there was 3 full-time cops with City of Edina.
Okay, if they're gonna cut back, and if
Then
they can't
I
do
gotta
it,
have more people.
That's right, the law enforcement needs to.
100%.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with it being, if we could staff a county, you know, more, if you guys have to cut them back, we figure out how to fund that, doesn't matter, I just think we need more law enforcement in the county.
I mean, I can tell you that, you know, I've been working on budgeting. This year it's about $105,000 per deputy to put them on the street. So, you know, our tasers, our guns, our ARs, our equipment, my $20,000 a year, so that I can be connected through our CAD system with 911. I spend a lot of money to provide the service that I provide, and you know, I mean, it is a lot to take on another, 1,100 people that we've never had the manpower to do so. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to have people, and to hire, you know, to think, well, just put a couple more on. Okay, $250,000, we can put a couple more on. You know, I mean, that's where we're at. You know, I hate to say it, but you know, it's true. You know, the
But we don't
days
have the
of,
money either.
oh no, I know that. You know,
Just
but
throw it around out there.
you know, but the days of, you know, driving an old F-150 with a blue and a red light in the dash, you know, and drive, those days are gone.
Well, I'd like to have a show of hand, I like to put you on the spot. who in this room thinks that Knox County needs, we can go back to the old phone bars and all that, but who thinks that we need to stay with 911? Who has an idea on who wants to come up with a plan on how we do that?
You talk about Shelby County spending $400,000 more than we do for 911 service.
400 total.
Yeah,
for this
where
year.
does that money come from?
They have a sales tax or a tax
So
that
they have a
get.
911 board.
Yeah, they have a tax and I think he said it was
180.
80 and they went over, that's what
20,000.
they get in taxes.
And that
didn't cover, they went over budget this year already.
But to put it on a tax, it would treat all citizens of the county the same.
Correct.
That's what I mean, it sounds to me like a discussion about who wants to be the person that says, I'm gonna raise your taxes. Edina doesn't wanna do it, the fire departments don't wanna do it, the county doesn't wanna do it, but ultimately, somebody's gonna have to be the one to say, if we want to maintain this service, we gotta pay for it.
Yes.
And it's not that different than a school district having to say, look, we need new roof, we need new entrance, and you have to go out and you gotta market a sales tax and convince people that it's important and they gotta have it.
We're gonna have a year of education, the public.
Deanna?
Okay, we're talking about being short-staffed, sorry guys, I've been quiet long enough. We're talking about being short-staffed and not having the money. We don't have the money to pick up an extra cost. We get through the end of the year without having to borrow money, and if we have to pick up your parts, then we're gonna be back in the hole.
It's not their part, it's our part.
Everybody's, but if we have to add more to it, it's gonna, I mean, we're paying this by ourselves.
It's their, as the way it sits now, it would be their part.
It is.
Because it's set up to
But
be
you know
three
what?
parts.
Nobody
But
wants-
in essence, we're all in it together. But
Knox
yes.
County Ambulance District, we're out there by ourselves. We could not get people hired because we didn't have health insurance. We tried to sign on with the city, not asking them to pay our health insurance, but to sign us on so we could get it at a cheaper rate, and they would not do it. So, which is fine, because we have better insurance now, we finally got it figured out. We get grants to get our equipment, because we can't afford $90,000 cardiac monitors to keep a service in our area. So we've got the two surrounding counties that are waiting to pounce and come in and close the ambulance service down so they can take over. So your county, your people are gonna have an ambulance 30 minutes away if we don't get this figured out. We don't have the money in our budget to pick up anything extra either. We don't have 4 full-time crews like we need, so we've got people working around the clock that are dedicated for years and years and years to make this happen. And we've been doing this out here on our own all this time. So as far as being short-staffed and not having it in the budget, we are there. We feel this every day. 96 hours in a row we feel this.
Well, I don't know, has anybody got anything they really wanna add?
I do. I'm just sitting here thinking about something. So, it's disappointing that, the city wants to do away with the police department. But it is what it is, that's their choice to do so. What they're saying, a ordinance enforcer, why would you pay an ordinance enforcer full benefits and $25 an hour?
That's not
To-
really our call.
Enforcing ordinances, when you can literally, there is there is nothing you can literally have an 18-year-old high school kid enforce city ordinances. Well, $25 an hour plus the benefits package is probably, I'm gonna say at a minimum, probably $60,000 a year. What's 25 times 2,080, $51,000 a year? So, there's your money right there. I mean, because you can literally, like, I was chief of police of a, of a town. There are first of all, people don't become chiefs of police to enforce grass. It's not why you have cops. There are city ordinance enforcers in cities all across the nation that are civilians. You could literally assign one of your city workers to enforcing city ordinances. Well, yeah, but what if somebody's, okay, well, you call us and we'll come with you. If that's what you need. There's your money right there. What do you need a full-blown certified post officer if all you're gonna do is city ordinances?
They're
There's
also
the pitch right there.
responsible for enforcing city and state and county law.
But they're not responsible for responding to
They're not
emergencies.
first call for emergencies.
What's the point of having them?
If they can enforce state law, and they can enforce, say, there's a speeder going through town and they can
You guys
stop
have no
it.
radars, but you don't have money to buy them, so.
Somebody runs a red light, runs a stop sign, hits a car, and they witness it, they can respond to that. They're just not going to get dispatched for emergency calls first. They can assist.
Okay. If that's your stance on what your definition of a police officer is, great. But, that's enough, that's all I had to say about that.
Well, where I was going with that, we've been here pushing an hour. I think we've laid out kind of where we're at. I think we all agree that we need to hold this 911 together. We could start looking at tax options, we could start negotiating with each other. We're starting to try to figure out where this money's gotta come from and how we're gonna hold it together, but we've all gotta be willing to play the game.
I think actually the 911 is a federal requirement.
Do what?
I think actually the 911 is a federal requirement. I don't think you can actually just not do 911. And I understand, and the city understands the position everybody is in, that they can't, we just don't have the budget and don't have the money to do it. Neither do they don't, you don't. But we did kind of throw around a little bit about the E91 telecommunications dollar for cell phones and things. Why not try to put it in there? I mean, the people who have cell phones are the ones who's gonna use those cell phones to call in those emergency calls. So if they have them, why not use that tax that's available? And that would help you, and it would be equal with the people in the city, because if they have a cell phone, they're gonna pay the tax. If they're out in the country and they have a cell phone, they're gonna pay the tax. And there isn't very many landlines anymore.
Well, one of the things on the ordinances you sent me, when I looked at those, some of those that were available to the county and the city. We could both, the city of Edina, the way I read it, the city of Edina could pursue those and the county could pursue those.
I don't believe for fourth-class cities that was
Okay,
available.
that may
Larger
be,
cities, you're correct.
that may be
The
the,
fourth class is what I was looking for.
But if the county is willing to pursue that telecommunications tax that's been available but hasn't been pursued, if they pursue that, then that is gonna benefit the sheriff's department for their answering of the emergency calls. But it's also going to, it's gonna raise the taxes for the people who live in the city, but it's gonna be equally on those that's in the county. To get and I guess you just have to do it like they say, school district. You just gotta say, this is out here, this is what this was meant for. This telecommunication tax was meant to help these places with the E911. So we're gonna put it on there to get everybody to vote for this, because this is what it's used for, and if you want your emergency calls answered, you need to vote for this tax that's been set aside specifically for the E911. And I think that would treat everybody fairly, and the city doesn't, in listening to them, I'm not on the board or anything like that. I'm just sitting here, but in listening, they're wanting the city to be covered. They are, they want the city to have police protection, but they can't afford the full protection that they had earlier. And I think we all can agree that when they had the full-time sheriff, full-time chief of police, he was helping out the department as much as he could, but it overtaxed him. And we can't continue to do that to a officer who we bring in. So we need to have more coverage for the city from the sheriff's department, but they're not trying to bully anyone. They're just facing the facts of what they have.
I don't get, if you do away with the city police officer and with our current sheriff's office the way it is, that overtaxes the sheriff's office and puts them in the same position that we just lost the chief of police who died for, right? I mean, it overworks an already overworked department. But if you do away and just do code enforcement, that means there's your city police officer, he's not gonna run any names, he's not gonna write any tickets, he's not gonna use any kind of way to track anything, right? You're not gonna call for mules, run a license plate, because if you do, then you're using the 911 services that the county's paying for. So they're gonna have to have their own computer system, they're gonna have to have their own services for mules, they're gonna have to have all of that. Which is, well, we already know it's $50,000 a year just for that kind of stuff.
I'm not sure.
It's close.
Well, it all depends on how many times they use it.
Yeah.
It's
That's a
all
per
per
call.
time thing, so if they don't use it as much, then that don't cost as much,
But they have to have their own system in place, 'cause I mean, they're not paying for making 911.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, there would be issues there.
They're still gonna incur some costs. You know, because if there's delayed crimes that happen in Edina, we will hold that and pass that to the city officer, which will cost the city $6 to make that incident. Now, of course, if there's an emergency, by all means, we'll be there. No doubt. We'll continue to take care. But most of, I'm not even gonna say most of Edina. Most of the sheriff's office's calls are not emergency. I mean, they're just not, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. They're, hey, somebody hit my mailbox, hey, or whatever it is, somebody stole my chainsaw last night. Well, if they've got city police, we're holding that, and they can come take the report when they're on duty again. Because it's non-emergency. Well, that's gonna cost the city money, because I'm gonna say, go ahead, we're gonna have to work something out at 911 to say, hey, create an incident for a theft of a chainsaw at North 4th Street, and assign that to the city officer, when they sign on. That's gonna cost $6, or $9, whatever it is to make that event. Well, as you've seen, my calls last year were approximately 900, as you mentioned. I will be over 2,000 by the end of the year. Well, there's your city of Edina calls. So 9 times whatever it is, there you go. And I would venture to guess that.
Try to keep this on track.
Yeah.
Some of you got other commitments. I think we need to, we know where we're at. We're all in agreement, almost to the person, we need to keep 911, maybe we have to by state law. We, as a commission, I guess, will start reaching out to for sure to the ambulance district. Start trying to figure out how to put this together. City of Edina, you can do some soul searching to see if you're willing to pay part of it, or if you're just gonna be completely out. And we'll start trying to put the pieces together. If that comes to something on the ballot, I know we can add it to the ballot. However, whatever the options are, we'll start discussion options. And if anybody's got a no-brainer, put it on the table, because
Well, there's a lot of things to look at, because if we put it on the ballot, how does that affect there's already a dispatch tax out there for the ambulance district that goes directly to the ambulance district. I'm pretty sure we can't tax the same tax twice.
And that doesn't cover our part.
And that's statutorily limited.
I'm not trying to argue the argument, but it does. Because you got $56,211.78 a year. And I understand that you use it that's a communication, so that's where you get your radios. But I don't want them to throw it back at you, because you paid $31,211, and by the end of the year, according to treasurer and according to Merlin, you'll have $56,000. So to be transparent with everybody, that's already coming into the ambulance district as their dispatch and communications tax. They use that to buy radios, they pay their bill, and from what I understand, and then any kind of communications, they can use that to pay for to help. I'll let Merlin explain, cause I
What we
want him
have
to
for the
be.
Knox County ambulance, you're correct, we paid our third is $31,628.60 last year.
Yeah.
And the rest of that dispatch tax is to fund communications equipment, which is pagers, radios. We maintain our radio here on the water tower, which, by the way, we pay the city of Edina $100 a month to have that on their tower. All that kind of stuff gets funded out of there.
Yeah.
That does not fund our entire communications for the year.
Yeah.
And one other thing I want to throw out there on behalf of the ambulance district, I want everyone to think about, in the city of Edina, that you're causing yourself a tax by overburdening your ambulance district that is already underfunded. We have some of the lowest paid personnel in the state. We're in the same boat as everyone else. We can't afford to pay our personnel like they deserve. But we spend all of our money every year. And if we had to pick up more of this dispatch funding, it's the ambulance district in short can't afford it, and you as a people are ultimately gonna pay the price. Whether that's doing something different for an ambulance district, but the ambulance district does not have the ability to pick that slack up. Anyone's welcome to come view the books, but that's just the long and short of it.
Well, and that's why I say, if we put this on a ballot for something else, I'm pretty sure that that's gonna do away with that.
There's a lot more
I
at
don't
stake
know, I'm not a
here.
lawyer, but I'm assuming you can't tax the people for the same dispatch tax twice, you know, that makes sense to me.
One of the things that I would point out, Merlin, when you were saying that, about not being able to fund your health, is the city of Edina people I'm looking at are all shaking their head, yeah, they feel your pain because they're in the same boat.
Right.
As are we,
As
as are we at the courthouse.
By burdening the ambulance district more with that, you're not only losing a police force, you're threatening to lose your ambulance service as well.
I have a question. How much is the 911 tax? Is it a quarter cent, half cent? What is that communications tax?
I'd say he got
And have we looked at,
Merlin might know that.
is it
You know what he did.
statutorily maxed? So there is a half cent
Right.
law enforcement tax that's in the county and been here since I believe the 80s. That is statutorily maxed. You cannot take that up, and I wonder if we will fall in to the same thing with that tax.
The ambulance tax is 3 cents per $100 assessed valuation, it's a property tax.
Oh, it's a property tax, okay, okay. Well,
Like I said, those are all things that we'll have to look into. We're not saying we won't look into or anything like that. I'm just saying there is potential hiccups on about every front that we look at. And we just, tonight, we really just wanted everybody to be able to know where we're all standing, because we all live here and we all want the same things. Obviously, we're all in this service for
And you had
others.
the
And
same conversation how many years ago when you put this in place, it was the exact same conversation, like,
exactly.
there's not enough money to cover it, how do we get it done? Only way we can do it is work together. We're right in that same boat tonight, we just gotta buckle down and make it happen.
I think it starts with community education on the state of the county, where we're at. It's a vital service. Knox County, we will not we will not do away with 911. We will still continue to take care of the citizens of Edina.
Yes.
And I guess we'll leave Edina to what they're gonna do. But the sheriff's office will still be here for everybody, and I know Knox County Ambulance will still be here for everybody. And we'll figure it out, guys. So it'll be all right. We'll figure it out.
We got to, I ain't leaving.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so we'll figure it out, and I think it starts with community education.
Martin, Tom, can you guys talk about the Edina Volunteer Fire Department funding, like where you are with, do you have any money left in the till at the end of the year? What's your budget like annually?
I'm not sure what it is, I don't think the budget, we go off the city's budget's what we go off of.
So you get your money mainly from Edina?
No, it's rural, but I mean, our budget for our applications and stuff is based through the city. We get 30,000 a year, and by the end of the year, we spend it on, we've got
real close.
money that we spend every year, and that's for equipment and everything.
So if Edina pulls out of E911 services, how is the Edina Volunteer Fire Department gonna be dispatched without access to emergency
They'll
services?
still be covered through the county.
That's what I say, I wanna make sure,
Yeah.
the fire departments, in my opinion, the county.
That has nothing to do with that.
When it was set up, from what I understand from talking to previous commissioners, the county paid for the sheriff's department and the volunteer fire departments in the county, and all the departments. And then the city of Edina paid for the city of Edina police, and the ambulance paid for the ambulances portion. That's how they thirded it. And in my opinion, that's the county, we should say the same way for the fire departments for sure. I mean, we're gonna pay for that service. If they're willing to volunteer their time to go out and try to save somebody, I'm willing to put in whatever I can to help support them, and as the county, looking at it that way.
Well, I mean, we
So
literally
Edina
have,
would be right in that same boat where they would never lose service, they would never,
And I should clarify, our budget actually, our budget is off of our rural dues, is what we collect off of our rural dues. So
that's what I was gonna say, most of our volunteer fire departments are running off of dues
What we
and
do.
fish fries,
our
to
dues
be
are-
honest.
Our dues are $75.
That's what keeps us afloat, dues and fire dues and fish fries. I mean,
Yep.
that's
That's right.
that's where we're at. So to tax fire departments with a $30,000 bill,
right, that's what I mean, you can't really start trying to, ask somebody who doesn't have nothing to give you more. I mean,
That's where
Yeah.
everybody's in the same boat.
right.
If you've had enough, have you had enough for tonight?
Thank you all for coming
I
and.
do have one more thing to say, and if you guys get something on the ballot for a sales tax, I will be your biggest advocate, cause I'm loud. So when we did to get our training for the paramedic to go to an ALS service, we talked to everybody, and they were on board, cause they knew we needed this for our county. So there you go.
The half-cent sales tax is going away on the courthouse fund, the courthouse is paid off, so that half-cent is going away. So, just pointing that out. I'm anti-tax, I don't like any tax, but I know they have to be to make things go.
And we're one of the lowest tax places in the state. They wanna talk taxes, move somewhere out of Knox County and see what we pay.
I did look at
Yeah.
statewide taxes, and we're kinda average. Motion to adjourn,
Yeah, make a motion.
you second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
We will work this out.
Thanks for coming. Good, how are you?
Board president,
We're all right, I'm just trying to get something.